Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Russell Wilson has officially signed with the Giants, leaving the Steelers with basically Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers. What's going to happen there? We talk about that impact with Nick Farabaugh and a lot more topics here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. More on them later. We are joined by Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Now, I will say this at the top of the show. We actually had to re-record this opening segment because the Russell Wilson signing with the Giants news happened after we had recorded our episode. Some of us wanted to get something done early for once in our lives, and look what that got me. This is so we're doing just this first segment. You will see the next two segments after that. If it sounds like we are not acknowledging that Russell Wilson is signed with the Giants in those two segments, it's because we recorded it before it was officially announced. So that's what that is. That pushed our Jaylen Warren topic off. I'll bring that up probably tomorrow on tomorrow's show. So pardon our dust as we deal with breaking news and how it happens. But Nick, what is your first reaction to seeing Russell Wilson's contract? Initially, Adam Schefter put out $21 million, but when you look at how much of that was incentives and it's really just 10.5, what's your opinion on how things played out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably about what I expected. Right. I mean, listen, like Russ was always going to be a guy that didn't have a ton of options. And so, he wasn't ever dangling like the retirement thing like Aaron Rodgers has been dangling either. And so, when it comes to what I thought Russ was going to get, I mean, $10.5 million guaranteed plus a ton of incentives, it's probably about right. I know he was probably asking for more around 20, but that's kind of just where he is right now. Like, listen, Russ has a skill set that fits him. He's got that moon ball still. It's still good. He's still got his deep ball going. But he's also a guy that you have to cater your offense to. You have to build your offense around a little more than most quarterbacks. And so also the Giants fit what I think he's kind of looking for in some regards, at least. He's got the sure topic. I think the sure path right now to the starting role. We'll see that they could draft a quarterback still. I think that is still right. Something that could hurt him there if he wants to start all year. But for the Steelers, this contract is still not bad, though. I mean, they get a fifth-round compensatory pick, and then if he does play and hits these incentives, they have a chance to hit another third-round pick. Same thing with Fields. If Fields can play all year, they can have 3 third-round compensatory picks if these things hit. I can't remember the last time a team's had 3 compensatory picks that are third-rounders. So that could really help the Steelers in that regard, too.
So basically, you're telling Steelers fans they still should be rooting for Russell Wilson at this point.
Ride with Fields and Wilson, because if both of them hit their incentives, they're going to be third-round compensatory picks. That's legit, man. 3 third-round comp picks like that gives you a lot of wheel and deal power if you're trying to trade up for, say, I don't know, a quarterback.
No, but that's where I'm at with this is that, one, the $10.5 million, that makes a lot more sense for what what he was probably going for there. But Nick, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment because the opening topic of this show was going to be about Bob Labriola's comments on Steelers.com. Bob Labriola, of course, working for Steelers.com, and he indicates that severed ties were involved in the decision of and why the Steelers aren't heavily pursuing to just bring back Russell Wilson and why they're more interested in Aaron Rodgers. And you can wait for that segment for us to talk about that. But to me, again, it just shows if the Steelers weren't willing to just pay Russell Wilson $10.5 million, I think it does kind of show there was something there that they said, like, nah, we're just not going to roll that back.
There's no doubt about it. There was a fracture that happened here. I think it was definitely due to. I don't even think it was due to necessarily the losing streak. I think a lot of it was probably the report that leaked to Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about taking away his freedom at the line of scrimmage. I do think that was a big part of it. I had heard that right after that coaches were pretty upset about that. And I think that was a mend that never really kind of got broken, got repaired, and they felt like it couldn't be. Clearly, I mean, I don't even think Russ was their D option. I wonder, even if Aaron Rodgers had gone elsewhere, if they would have even circled back to Russ. I think pretty clearly he was low on the totem pole. And all of this kind of public posturing about we want to bring Russ back, et cetera, was basically word play just to kind of have leverage against Justin Fields where they were trying to negotiate. So, yeah, something absolutely happened there between someone and Russell Wilson because it felt like this was not happening. If they are willing to wait out Aaron Rodgers for 2 weeks before pivoting to Russ, there's something that happened there. Something fractured these two sides apart.
Now, again, we'll get more to that in the next segment, but let's circle back here. Does this basically mean Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers quarterback? Or, Nick, do you still see the chance of him either retiring or the Vikings going back against what everyone thought was going on there and him finding a way to not be on the Steelers roster? Because at this point, it's like the Steelers are his last landing spot.
I don't really see him going to the Vikings. I don't think the Vikings are going to be interested. I think they're going to ride the J.J. McCarthy train. I think that's the way they should go. You need to see what he is. But here's the thing about Rodgers. I guess he has three options. I guess his three options are Pittsburgh retirement or just wait. I guess he could just wait and hope someone gets hurt in camp or preseason and then sign there. But I don't think that's very likely with some of the things Rodgers brings to the table. And so, yeah, I think this feels just about right that he's probably going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think we felt that way for a while now, Chris, especially after he visited Pittsburgh. I think, listen, I don't think coming down to the facility for a visit is the type of thing a guy that wants to retire does. That's not generally what happens. So if he's in on this, if he's fully ready to go, and I'm sure the Steelers brought that up in the discussions. All right, are you fully in? Are you ready to go? And as long as they got that assurance, I imagine this is probably going to get done. I don't know when. It could happen this week. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 2 days before the draft. But I imagine that this will get done. It feels like Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers is pretty much an inevitability at some point. Yeah,
it's just the only thing that can stop it is him just being like, you know what, I don't want to do that, and I do think that if he wants one more hurrah, it's there. But still, the question will be, who knows when he does it? Nick? Several people have brought this up to me. The potential of this falling along the announcement coming with Pat McAfee's show's official Pittsburgh, episode in the tour that they're doing. What are the chances? Because I've heard a lot of people pose this theory. Oh, he's waiting until Pat McAfee comes to PPG Paints Arena so that he can do the announcement there. And I believe that happens on the 9th of April.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that being when this happens?
I mean, it would fit the MO. It would make sense. I also thought, the soft deadline I've kind of thrown out there is April 21st. April 21st is the start of the Steelers' is like voluntary workouts where they can come in to work out. I think that is a good deadline to look at too. So, I mean, listen, April 9th, if he's McAfee's surprise guest and announces, I'm signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, would anyone be stunned? No. But I also think if you want, if you kind of want to set a little soft deadline for yourself, April 21st, I think makes sense. I just think Rodgers has a lot of unique things that make him a little harder to work with right away in terms of his cadence, his hand signals, the new concepts that he's going to want to come in with the playbook to fit what he does. It's a little different than any other veteran quarterback. And you saw that the first year he was in the New York with the Jets, he was at like every OTA's practice. They actually canceled their mandatory minicamp because he was there like all the time through the voluntary phases, the OTAs. I know he wasn't around as much last year, and people are like, he's not going to show up. The history of what he's kind of done when he's gone to new places or the overhaul of a structure around him, he's shown up to these events. He's a very detail-oriented player in that regard. So that's why I throw the 21st out as kind of that soft, arbitrary deadline. Because also last time when he got traded to the Jets, it took until the week of the draft for that to happen. So I think that's probably around the deadline where I would expect this to happen. But nobody's going to be shocked if he at PPG Paints Arena, Pat McAfee goes, "Bring him on out!" and they get him there, and then he just announces it. No one's going to be surprised,
Yeah, several people have asked me this, and I feel like, it's kind of like, I'm like, yeah, I could see it happening. I feel like it would be lame, but like, whatever. Like, if whatever rocks your boat, you want to just make the announcement, do it for your friend who's been bringing you on his show. Like, I get that'd be cool for him. So either way, this Russell Wilson signing does make it seem like Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers quarterback for 2025. The only thing that can stop it is if he doesn't want to be. And, but again, I think also it shows the Steelers, their willingness to just wait it out and just be like, we're not offering you any more money. You take this offer, you figure, or you retire, you do what you want to do, but we have a plan and we will be good with it no matter what happens here. I think that shows where the Steelers have been there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into what was originally supposed to be our first segment, and that's if Russell Wilson's problems were an issue, what's to be expected that those problems won't carry over to Aaron Rodgers and being a veteran quarterback who likes to have his own way with the offensive scheme. We'll talk about that next here, and Quinn Ewers and Texas's pro day that was yesterday. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute tickets at the unbeatable prices. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue, so it's reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee, because if you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference of those prices. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options, even if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off for your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Reminder, we had to do some re-recording, so this is going to be bringing us back into our conversation. This was originally the opening segment, but it was talking about an article where Bob Labriola of Steelers.com got into it and explained that Russell Wilson might have severed ties so deeply with the Steelers that he wouldn't return. Obviously, things sound a lot more obvious now with the Russell Wilson news, but I still think there's some things to pull out of this conversation. Take a listen here with me and Nick Farabaugh. Nick, I want to kick things off by jumping right into something that was said by Bob Labriola, who works for Steelers.com. He's been a longtime resident over there, writing for the Steelers, representing what's going on there. And I thought it was interesting, something that he said recently in regards to the Russell Wilson situation, the Steelers quarterback. He said, quote, "The fact that it hasn't happened leads me to believe there is a fracture somewhere in the relationship between the Steelers and Russell Wilson that's too deep to overcome." Talking about that situation. And this is coming in a time when the Steelers, they're looking for the 1 year rental backup or vet quarterback, not backup quarterback, but vet quarterback who can get them to the 2026 draft and be like, okay, it wasn't a bad year, so now you still have things intact. Now you can go get your quarterback in the draft next year. But Nick, we've talked about this, and it just seems like it was a question that people had, like, okay, so you're going to consider Russell Wilson when you don't bring back Justin Fields, right? And it just hasn't happened. What do you think these are, these severed ties that Labriola, references?
I imagine it has to do with the whole report that Jerry Dulac at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette came out with in January about the changing of his duties at the line of scrimmage. I'm sure Russ, as a veteran, didn't like that. Clearly, if you take that away, Arthur Smith didn't like how Russell Wilson was running his offense. Mm-hmm. It seems like that probably snowballed, right? You lose 5 games, even though he wasn't the only issue. He was one part of it in the 5-game losing streak. All of that stuff, man, it just sours it. I think that's kind of what happened here. I imagine, maybe this isn't as much a locker room thing as much as it is a coaching staff thing, right?
Yeah.
Can Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith mend ties and work together? I think that's a question, and I don't think that clearly. If Labriola is saying this, I mean, let's be real here, guys. This is the Steelers website, the official website.
Steelers.com.
Right. So things, get vetted before they put out there. The fact that that's being put out there means there is absolutely validity to that. And so I imagine it has to do with all of that. And so it's snowballed, and that's where it's at right now. And honestly, I mean, let's be real. I don't think there's much of a scenario where Russ is back at this point. Maybe if Rodgers goes elsewhere, but certainly if that's the type of rhetoric being put out on the Steelers website, certainly seems like Russell Wilson's heading elsewhere next year.
And it seems baffling to me, considering that, yeah, things ended rough, but like, geez, like you saw the jump up there. But let's accept that to be true. Like, again, like you're saying, and the reason I'm saying when Bob Labriola says it, Bob knows something. Like he's, and the team like you said, the team vets everything that gets put out there on their website. They're not going to put something out there that they weren't comfortable with just being out in the world. So with that being then said, let's put this on what the Steelers are trying to do now at quarterback. Is it the same thing just going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? Does Arthur Smith think that Aaron Rodgers is going to say, hey, Arthur Smith, who's never won a Super Bowl or even been to a Super Bowl, yeah, I'm going to not do what I always do in every offense and make it what I want to be. Yeah, I'm just going to be a good little soldier and just never call hot routes and audibles in your system that change things up. It just, I don't think that that's going to happen. The only way that this can work out better is if there's like okay, we'll let bygones be bygones with the whole Russell Wilson situation, but Mike Tomlin and the staff's like, Art, whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers, you got to eat it because he's the guy this year.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Listen, Rodgers has like a different cadence, these hand signals that he's known for, like all that's coming with him, and you're going to run the Aaron Rodgers offense. Just like the Steelers last year ran more of the Russell Wilson offense, right? There was a lot of the go balls, and theoretically and historically in Arthur Smith's offense, those go balls down the sideline didn't really exist as much, but they sure did last year. And so you're going to do a lot of that this year. You're probably going to play a lot of gun 11 personnel, right? Probably less of the condensed 12 we saw last year. And so all that's going to come with Aaron Rodgers. And so, the question is going to have to be, Arthur Smith, how much is he willing to kowtow, if you will, to that? I mean, he's going to have to. Aaron Rodgers is not coming to Pittsburgh without running his concepts, with his route tree, the things he likes, his hand signals, his cadence. All that comes with Aaron Rodgers. And so Arthur Smith's going to have to be okay with that. The question is, and I think what you run the risk of doing is, as you said, you run the risk of running the same thing happening. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, I think personally, I think Russ, getting that taken away from him, it's a little bit of a signal to vets that, hey, Arthur Smith might not let you have all that freedom, right? Arthur Smith likes it when guys just kind of stand back, play in structure. That's why he loved Ryan Tannehill. And loved that because Tannehill just kind of did what he said.
Yeah.
Threw the ball where he saw it and drew it up. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to do that either. Aaron Rodgers is going to change things at the line. And I guess it's just going to be how much Arthur Smith trusts Aaron Rodgers. Right now, I think it sounds great, right? This time last year, the Russell Wilson Steelers marriage also sounded great. They were like, wow, we love this guy. Remember the rhetoric last year when they were like, we want to extend Russell Wilson. We want him to be here multiple years. And obviously that doesn't seem to be the case. And so we'll see. Hopefully they learned their lesson with that and they kind of are able to tread this water with Aaron Rodgers, but we'll see.
No, I'm right with you on that. That was certainly the rhetoric that was last year was, oh, Russell Wilson is here. He can be here for some years now. This is his second chance of being, or a third chance of being a franchise quarterback. So I'm with you there. And I think there needs to be an understanding that, like you said, this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' offense as much as Arthur Smith wants to get things going, but there also has to be a conglomeration. I think that's going to be the trickiest part of the offense this season. If Aaron Rodgers is the guy, he still hasn't signed. It's still not a guaranteed thing. It's not even it's not something that's definitely going to happen just now. I think it's becoming more and more likely as the Vikings are not in play. And I don't think the Giants are looking like a great host for Aaron Rodgers moving forward, but if Aaron Rodgers turns out to be your guy, there needs to be a blending of what he likes to do in the passing game and the fact that the Steelers want to be a physical run team. Not only does that have to happen, like that's the other thing about this is that the O-line has to take a step up this year. They have to be that much more physical, that much more pointed, that much more, based in their technique. But they got to do it in a way that also protects Aaron Rodgers, who is not this mobile guy that he used to be, when he used to buy a lot more time for himself. So that's going to be one of the biggest challenges in this. And while you're doing this, you're dealing with a quarterback who's going to want to do his own things and not just stick to the system that Arthur Smith is trying to implement and make a staple for the Steelers for the next few years.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. Like, I'm not saying the Steelers are going to have to learn an entirely new offense with Aaron Rodgers, but they're going to have to learn a lot of new. Like, a lot of things are going to change with Aaron Rodgers coming in. And if you're an offensive coordinator, you kind of sign up knowing that when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, when you have a guy like Russell Wilson, I imagine the way they're going to treat Aaron Rodgers is going to be far more akin to how they treated late career Ben Roethlisberger. That's kind of how I think they're going to do it. They're going to let him. They might let him draw the plays in the sand. Remember when Ben used to do that and just point and say, do this, do that? Rodgers does that all the time.
Yep.
If you talk about his hand signals, him and Devontae Adams, he would just be like, he would signal to him and it would change the route. Arthur Smith is going to have to be willing to understand that stuff's going to change pre-snap like that. And they're going to need a lot around Aaron Rodgers. You talk about the O-line. I think they needed a receiver that could separate quickly, as a route runner type, because Aaron Rodgers has this lightning quick release and likes to get the ball out fast. Maybe that's Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson, but right now they don't have a proven guy that does that just yet on the roster. They have two really good deep threats, but they're not natural separators, quick separators, that is. I think that they're also going to need to make that run game really work. I'd like to see that run game be explosive. So you need a running back that I think can be explosive. So there's a few things they still need, but the key here is if this is going to work, if Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith are going to work together, there has to be a synergy and an understanding of what is going to happen from the day Rodgers comes into the building to the end of it.
Absolutely. I want to talk more about the future quarterback situation. The Steelers were reportedly looking at one of those potential future quarterbacks in Quinn Ewers at Texas. We'll talk about that, the Texas Pro Day, and what to think of more of this NFL draft class and where Nick sees things falling. We got that and Jaylen Warren talk next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Rejoin me with Nick Farabaugh here. Again, we had to do some editing after the show was originally recorded, but this is us getting into the rest of our conversation, talking about Quinn Ewers, Texas Pro Day, and how the Steelers might see him in their quarterback prospects of who they could bring in the 2025 NFL Draft. Here, take a listen to that conversation. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Nick, let's talk about another quarterback the Steelers did some talking with this week. That was Quinn Ewers, the quarterback out of Texas. Texas's Pro Day was yesterday, and there's a lot of big names at that Pro Day. Jahdae, Barron, Calvin Banks. There's a whole bunch of Matthew Golden. There's a whole bunch of guys for the Steelers to look at, but Quinn Ewers got a chance, and a lot of people were having some fun with one of his throw highlights. I don't know if you saw, he threw a 60-yard pass. It got there, but boy, did it wobble and hang. And a lot of people were like, man, that's why Quinn Ewers is going to be a fifth-round pick this year. What is your opinion on Quinn Ewers as a quarterback, where he fits in this draft class? And if the Steelers are looking at guys to be backup quarterbacks, would he even be one that you're interested in there?
I'm not a huge Quinn Ewers fan. Listen, he'll have his fans, and I kind of understand it. He's a high pedigree guy, and he's from a big name program. I do think he's accurate. I think that helps. I think he's the guy that can throw on the run, and can really elevate your quick game. I think the fact that you come from a Sark offense always means you're a pretty good quick game quarterback. So if you're trying to mitigate an offensive line and you're worried about that, maybe he's a guy like that. I also think he's got some solid IQ. So I don't think he's a guy that's going to completely break down above the neck at the first sign of pressure, which I think is a positive. But I don't think the velocity on the ball, as you kind of talked about, is great. He has a little bit of an injury history. His mechanics are a little bit all over the place. So when he pushes the ball down the field, it can be a little bit of an adventure, right? I think Ewers, man, he's an interesting player, but he's not a game changer. I think, there's other guys with upside in this class. We talk about Milroe. Milroe's really erratic too with his accuracy, but the tools are just way better. There's guys like Will Howard who throw a better deep ball, and you
explain to sorry to cut you off. Explain to our listeners, when you say their tools are better, what do you mean? Because I feel like when we say that, there's a lot of people that don't get what we're meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the arm strength, the athleticism. Arm strength isn't just how far you throw the ball; it's can you fit it into tight windows with velocity. I think that's the key. Ewers can throw the ball far, but the velocity, if you watch his tape and see some of the throws he throws outside the numbers, man, those things hang a little bit. They do. And so there's a little bit of worry there with the arm strength and if he can push it outside the numbers. And so Ewers is probably rightfully, I think, kind of valued in that 4th to 5th roundish range. He's not a guy I would personally love for the Steelers. I think, as I said, I think guys like Will Howard are a better fit. I think he's a better player. I would take, all of Milroe, Shuck, and Howard above Ewers personally. I understand where kind of the sell on Ewers is, but I'm not the biggest fan of Quinn Ewers. I think we've kind of seen what he does. I think he'll be a fine backup, but I don't think the Steelers are just shooting for fine backup. I think they want some upside in that player.
No, I think so too, because I think the thing is you can get a fine backup with upside. And I even said this in my Monday episode. I think that's the strength of this quarterback class. We've talked about this not being a good quarterback class because there aren't just a whole bunch of bona fide starters. There aren't going to be 5 guys that go in the first round. But I do think when you get to those 3rd and 4th round guys, there's a decent crop of guys. Like if you're really looking for a future backup quarterback, a guy that you can just trust to be on your bench and just coming in a pinch that you can develop in your system to hold it down when things go wrong, this would be a good year for that. Because like you said, I like Will Howard, I like Tyler Shuck, I like guys. I like Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. I think that he's another. I put him above Quinn Ewers in that respect. And so, between all those guys, then you bring up Milroe and Howard. Like if the Steelers were able to get one of those guys, anywhere between the 3rd and the 5th round, I think that'd be solid. And that would be something that you could live off of, and like you said, with upside, they have those tools we're talking about, whether it's arm strength or athleticism or something that directly translates to being a better player in the NFL. If they have one of those tools there or some of those tools, that gives them a chance to become a starter someday in the NFL. Like say that you get the guy and you just have one of those, oh snap, like this guy was so much better than we thought, like Russell Wilson was when he was coming in with the Seahawks or Tom Brady with the Patriots, whatever. Say you stumbled onto something there and you're like, you know what? 2026 isn't the year of the quarterback because 2025 we got our steal of a guy. Now I'm not saying that's going to happen or the Steelers should bank on that. In fact, I don't think that they are, but what I'm saying is I think that's what you're looking at here is Ewers is in that class of guys. And to be honest, he's on the lower end of that class of guys when we're even looking at that group of backups.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, listen, I think Ewers has some qualities. As I said, I think if you're an offense that wants a guy to efficiently run quick game, and that's what you want to do, and there are offenses that do that in the NFL, I think he does it really well. I'm just not sure the Steelers are going to want to run a ton of quick game with George Pickens and DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. Like the Steelers are built for this field stretching offense, right?
Yeah.
They're built for this field stretching play action offense. I just don't really view that as an ideal fit for Quinn Ewers. And so guys I'm talking about like Shuck, Howard, better fits. McCord, better fit for that type of system than Quinn Ewers. So I think you could argue Quinn Ewers is maybe a better prospect than some of those if you're a team that runs that quick game style stuff. Steelers don't really do that, though. And so I don't really get the Quinn Ewers fit with Pittsburgh personally.
Yeah, I don't either. I do think that Texas does have a good amount of recruits though at their pro day, particularly Jahdae Barron, who I think has worked his way into potentially being a top 10 pick at the worst. I think top 15 pick at cornerback. But Matthew Golden's another player that a lot of people have been looking at in the first round. There are some people that are very high on him. Some people that are like, I'm not sure if he has it all together. What's your opinion on him as their wide receiver if the Steelers were to make him their first round pick this year?
I love Matthew Golden. Great route. Great route. He reminds me, and If you're using Steelers comps, he reminds me a lot of Santonio Holmes. I
Ooh.
see it. He's this kind of quick twitch athlete in and out of his breaks. I don't know if he's a 4.29 on tape like he ran at the combine, but
Mhm.
in and out of breaks, he's so explosive. He's a really polished, detailed route runner. He is just a fun player to watch. For his size, he's a big time winner above the rim too. Like he
Mm.
goes up and gets it. He high points that ball. He thinks it's his, man. He's got a dog mentality to his game. I don't think he's a great blocker, but he is trying at all times. Like high effort player, I think too. I'm a big fan of Matthew Golden. I really like him. So I think if he's there at 21, and if the Steelers wanted to draft a receiver, I mean, they could throw him in the slot this year, and then depending on what they would plan with George Pickens, he could easily flip out to the Z or do whatever. I think he's a great fit for them if they wanted to take a receiver there. Personally, I like him more than Egbuka and Bird. That's
Okay.
my opinion. I like him more than that. I think you can argue for him as the wide receiver 1 in this class, not Travis Hunter, of course. If you count Travis Hunter, he's the wide receiver 1. But him and Tet McMillan, I think, are closer than people think. So I really like Matthew Golden. I'm a big fan. There's a lot of really good prospects, as you mentioned here, though, too. Running back Jaydon Blue.
I was going to ask next.
Yeah, there's two D tackles too, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. So
Mhm.
a lot of players there, man.
No, I agree there. Real quick, your thoughts on Jaydon Blue? Where's the round where you're like Steelers run to the podium to get him?
4th round. He can run. I think he's a 4.2 speed guy. He is so quick in and out of his breaks. Great wide zone runner. I don't think they have this natural wide zone guy. He does have fumble issues. I think that's a little bit of a concern. The thing I like about him that separates him from a few others is his ability in the receiving game. He has so much receiving upside that's already on tape that he could be a 3-down type back for you. He could be a wide zone back, a receiving back, and that pass protecting back because he has all 3 of those skill sets in his game. So this is not just a speed back that is an early down guy. He can be a guy that can eventually become that 3-down back. So I like that about Jaydon Blue.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We are doing a different ending because originally we ended our show with the Jaylen Warren topic. We never got around to that because of the Russell Wilson breaking news and how that impacted the show. We will try to bring that up on tomorrow's show. However, as always, you can check out this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content, and subscribe to on your favorite podcasting apps as well. You can also read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, and you can find me on your favorite podcasting. You can find me on all your social media accounts at Carter Critiques if you ever want to follow my work there. And we will keep you up to date with all things happening there. Who knows? We will have some more new news to come out this week about another signing in the NFL. But either way, keep it here with the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you again real soon.